Pamphlet comes from the title of a Latin love literary composition known as pamphilus that was purportedly passed from person to person. Heresy comes from a Greek sense alternative. War comes from a Germanic root that meant to confuse. Muscle comes from a Latin root which means little mouse. Apparently individuals want to suppose muscles sounded like very little mice underneath their skin. Nice comes from a Latin sense ignorant. Loophole, or murder hole, originally observed the slits in castle walls that archers would shoot their arrows through. Lemur comes from a Latin word which means spirit of the dead. The individual that named them cited their nocturnal nature as a supply of influence. Disaster comes from the Greek dis, which means unhealthy, and aster, which means star. The traditional Greeks wont to blame calamities on unfavorable planetary positions. Hazard comes from the Arabic alzar, which implies the dice. The term came to be related to dice throughout the Crusades and eventually took on a negative connotation as a result of games of dice were related to gambling. Quarantine comes from the French quarante for 40. Whenever a ship incoming in port was suspected of being infected, it had to antecede contact with the shore for an amount of regarding 40 days. Jumbo was presumably originally the word for elephant in an exceedingly West African language. It took on the which means of large. Once associate elephant in London installation was named large in 1860. Curfew comes from a mixture of two French words, couvrir and feu. Virtually this implies to cover fire. Jeans were named when their place of origin, Genoa, Italy. Berserk comes kind ancient Norse fighters that were called berserkers. Lunatic springs from the Latin word luna that means moon. It originated from the assumption that mental illness is caused by changes within the moon.